Good evening, Will. Hillbilly Elegy is currently #1 on the Amazon bestsellers list. And by the way, #2 is that same book in the hardcover version. That story tells Vance's journey from humble origins to where he is pretty much now. He's expected to lean into that message tonight. Now, Vance had his first official appearance as the VP pick this morning at a fundraiser. The 39-year-old is a Marine veteran, Yale graduate, and businessman who rose to prominence because of his best-selling memoir. He was elected to the Senate 2 years ago. Many RNC attendees were excited about Trump's pick.
He is young, he's enthusiastic, he's intelligent, he's everything that we could want. If something were to happen, he could lead this country.
Couldn't have been happier. He lives and breathes MAGA.
He's got that more youthful side to him, so I think he's going to be full of a lot of good energy, positive energy to help bring the country together.
Just feel like he's the right candidate to carry the MAGA agenda forward, the America First agenda forward.
Democrats have been quick to paint the Ohio senator as a MAGA extremist, noting Vance's false claims of voter fraud and comments against abortion exceptions for rape and incest. A woman who almost died after being denied an abortion in Texas spoke at a Democratic-sponsored event this morning.
We've been turned away from hospitals. We've been found collapsed on bathroom floors. We have been told to flee our state borders in the hope of receiving basic reproductive care.
Vance has also been a vocal opponent of Ukraine funding, an issue that has divided the Republican Party. Vance is scheduled to be the last speaker this evening. He will directly follow his wife. Now, Vance is expected to lean into his very humble origins and is hoping to leave a positive first impression for the millions of Americans watching. Reporting in Milwaukee, I'm Dan Hagen from Newswatch 12.
Floor on what to expect from the former president. Dan?
Good evening, Will. In about 3 hours, President Trump will take the stage right there behind me. It will be his first public speech since the attempt at his life last Saturday. So the question is, what is he going to talk about? Well, he has said that he has ripped up his old speech and will talk about unity more. Whether that happens, we'll see tonight. But another curveball for the Trump campaign is who is going to be at the top of the Democratic ticket. Joe Biden is facing more and more calls to step down, which means the former president will likely aim attacks at Vice President Kamala Harris this evening, who is seen as his natural successor. Like I said, more and more reports are showing top Democratic leadership calling for Joe Biden to drop out. Trump, however, is riding high heading into his speech tonight with top Republicans united behind him. Marathon County GOP Chair Kevin Hermaning is a delegate and will be watching the speech from the convention floor. He thinks Trump will talk about how last weekend's events have had a humbling effect.
Realizing that there is a higher purpose for his life, realizing that he's been given a second chance at life, and he intends to make the best of it and bring all of the American people into his future presidency.
Democratic Party of Wisconsin Chair Ben Wickler says the most striking thing about this convention is about what's not being talked about. Topics like January 6th, election denial, and the overturning of Roe versus Wade have not been discussed. Wickler is also alarmed by Trump's vengeful rhetoric on the campaign trail.
I don't know if that Trump is going to show up on the convention stage tomorrow or whether we're just going to see him on the campaign trail. But I think what a lot of people are worried about is that that's the guy who would come back into the Oval Office, someone trying to crush his enemies and reward his billionaire friends.
Now, Trump is expected to talk about the main Republican talk points that have been focused on during this convention. That would be immigration, inflation, and the perceived weaponization of the Department of Justice. Trump is expected to speak at 9 p.m. tonight. Reporting in Milwaukee from the RNC floor, I'm Dan Hagen for Newswatch 12.
Forum in Milwaukee and has more. Dan?
Hi, Will. A Teamsters president addressing a Republican National Convention. That would not have happened 10 years ago. And it shows how the Republican Party has changed in terms of policy and that's largely because of its leader, Donald Trump. Now, the Teamsters president stopped short of endorsing Trump for president, but it shows the party's willingness to embrace economic populism, which appeals to worker rights and not to corporate interests. Longtime Milwaukee reporter Dan Schaefer says this would be a 180 for Republicans, especially in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin Republicans obviously passed a lot of anti-union laws in the early 2010s under Scott Walker, so I'd be interested to see what some of the reaction would be like from some of those Wisconsin Republicans to that type of message being at the RNC. And I think it is, just the latest and just kind of the latest chapter in how Trump has remade the Republican Party over the past 8 or 9 years.
Congressman Tom Tiffany was a legislator during Act 10 and didn't directly address the Teamsters president's speech last night, but he agreed Donald Trump has forever changed his party.
Donald Trump has put his stamp on the party. That is in regards to foreign policy, where we were largely interventionists all over the world. There's much more of a mindset of we need to be discriminating about where we get involved around the world.
The typical Republican has changed a lot over the last decade. What used to be a suburban core party is now based in the rural areas and the exurban areas. And there's signs that this demographic is shifting more for the 2024 presidential election. This includes polls showing young black men more likely to vote for Republicans than in generations. Reporting in Milwaukee, I'm Dan Hagen for Newswatch 12. At the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee just a while ago, and it's interesting to point out that a major theme there was strength versus weakness in terms of their perception of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Of course, Joe Biden is no longer in the race, and it's a little bit harder to make that argument when Kamala Harris is a prosecutor, 20 years his junior, and Donald Trump is trying to become the oldest person ever inaugurated as president.
Our own Dan Hagen is outside the United Center in Chicago with more on Biden's remarks. Dan?
Hi, Jake. The DNC Night 1 just wrapped up with President Joe Biden giving his full-throated endorsement of Kamala Harris. And one really poignant thing that he said, Joe Biden has had a long career. He said the best decision he made in his entire career was putting Kamala Harris on the ticket 4 years ago.
Newswatch 12's Dan Hagen is outside the Pfizer Forum with more.
Hi, Jake. I was here just a month ago for the Republican National Convention, and Republicans across the country were excited and confident about victory this November. However, a lot has changed in the last month. The top of the ticket, most notably, now has Kamala Harris, and Democrats are excited. I spoke to a few of them before the event this evening to hear why they decided to come out today.
With more. Dan, good evening.
Hi, Jake. I'm in the midst of the Wisconsin delegation here at the United Center, and I'm joined by Liz and Jan. They are two delegates from Stevens Point. Okay, one word to describe the convention so far.
Joy. Excellent.
Fantastic. We'll talk to you more a little bit later, but I do want to talk about who's going to be speaking this evening, and that'll be Governor Tim Walz. Kamala Harris chose him as her running mate.
Oh, Dan, what did Walz focus on?
Well, Jake, he focused on his humble origins. He grew up in Butte, Nebraska, home to just around 400 people, only 24 people in his graduating class.
Our own Dan Hagen joins us live from the floor of the United Center, Chicago, with more. Dan?
Hi, Jessica. This is the biggest moment in Kamala Harris's career. She will have the chance this evening to talk to millions of Americans, some of them still undecided. From reporting, I've learned that she is trying to focus on reclaiming patriotism for the Democratic ticket, as well as telling her life story and focusing on the future, not the past. So like I said, Kamala Harris will have a huge audience tonight. One of the people in attendance are Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. David, how are you doing?
I'm ecstatic, I am elated, I am filled with joy, and I'm so glad to be here.
What do you want Kamala Harris to talk about this evening?
One, I want her to talk about some of the ideas that she's going to be bringing to the table, how we're going to be looking towards the future of America, bringing unity back to this country and making sure that our neighbors are not looked at as enemies. And that's what I'm looking forward to, and really seeing this place really fill up and ring throughout and to hear some freedom. Right?
The last two presidential elections decided by less than 20,000 votes. Why do you think Wisconsin could go blue this year?
Well, I mean, again, with 20,000 votes is a very slim margin, and we know how purple the state is. But I truly believe that this message that the Harris-Walz campaign has been pushing out is resonating with all of our entire community in the state of Wisconsin. I truly believe that as long as we focus on the policies and show the stark contrast in the agendas being shared by the Democrats and the Republicans, people are going to come out in droves and making sure that we make history in November.
Okay, that was Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. David, thank you so much. I will send it back to the studio. Reporting in Chicago, I'm Dan Hagen for Newswatch 12.
Our own Dan Hagen joins us live from the floor of the United Center and has more. Dan?
Hi, Jessica. Yeah, the one big exception to party unity at the Democratic National Convention is this situation in Gaza and how the Biden administration has handled it. This has caused a lot of anger on the left, and that was exasperated when Palestinian Americans were denied a speaking slot at the Democratic National Convention. Some people on the left fear with such a close election expected this November that this may alienate a core group of voters for Democrats, Arab Americans, who make up a sizable portion of the electorate in important swing states like Pennsylvania and Michigan. But if we want to zoom out for a moment right now, Kamala Harris, this is her moment tonight. She will have a chance to speak to millions of Americans. Some of them have never heard her speak before, and many of them are undecided and are looking for someone to support this November. She will have that opportunity tonight. Reporting from the DNC, I'm Dan Hagen for Newswatch 12.